Hello, I'm Tim Rogers. You are watching Kotaku.com. Final Fantasy VII came out 21 years ago. I played it at that time. Shortly afterward, I moved to Japan. I lived in Japan for 10 years. In 2017, I started playing Final Fantasy VII in Japanese for the first time. I've been making these videos exploring the differences between the English script and the Japanese original. Most of these differences are tiny and insignificant. I have been pointing out these tiny, insignificant differences because if I don't, who will? Along the way, I might have accidentally taught you some Japanese words and phrases that will never be of any practical use to you. This is the penultimate episode of my series. Fun fact, there's no single word for penultimate in Japanese. When we last left our heroes, they were discussing their regrets and hopes around a bonfire. They'd just killed a ghost and learned that a pantherish lab experiment's father was in fact both a statue and not a wastrel. As they continue to chase a megalomaniac named Sephiroth in today's episode, they're going to befriend a vampire, study rocket science, and be locked inside an amusement park. Our friends enter Tifa and Cloud's long-ago hometown of Nibelheim, the burning down in a Sephiroth-enacted hate fire of which impacted formative memories in both Tifa and Cloud. Tifa is shocked toward grammatical irregularity at the Disneyland pristine state of the perfectly intact village. Tifa says,
"What?"
with 3 dashes and 2 exclamation points. Let's look at the Japanese. Here we see a single hiragana e followed by a long squiggly tilde, except it's not actually a quote-unquote tilde in the Roman alphabet sense. A true tilde would be that particular squiggle which, in superscript, transforms the English letter N into the Spanish letter ñe. In Japanese, this long banner-like tilde is used to denote extension of the preceding syllable's vowel. Fun fact, I've never met a Japanese person who knew what this was called. In my 10 years living in Japan, do you know what this thing is called? Came up 4 times, always in bars, always between 2 drunk men, neither of whom could satisfy the other. This particular punctuation mark came up 1 time 2 years ago, while I was translating Dandy Dungeon, Onion Games' spectacular, available now, free-to-play RPG for iOS and Android. I had used this tilde in English for a dialogue box which had no such thing in the Japanese original, and the game's writer, Yoshiro Chulip Kimura, informed me of this. In English, he said, it says, "I'm getting pumped." In Japanese, it says, "Atsui zo." Why did you use that, mimizu mitai na yatsu in there? Mimizu mitai na yatsu is Japanese for that worm-looking thing. I explained that thanks to anime and manga, the Japanese tilde usage has caught on in casual English, only it's usually used at the end of a written sentence to denote the texter's enthusiasm. Kimura asked, "What sort of person uses this tilde?" I replied, "Usually the sort of person who insists on using Line instead of Facebook Messenger." Kimura asked for an example. I said, "Someone might say, 'I'm going to the mall,' and you might reply with, 'I'll meet you there,' tilde. This does not in any way indicate that I'm stretching out the word there." Kimura was taking astute notes. "Say you wanted to stretch out the word there," he asked. "How would you even pronounce that? 'I'll meet you there-ee.'" No, I said. I then indulged his curiosity. "I'll meet you there." To which Kimura retorted, "So is there anything that can make that final E not silent?" And I replied, "Hey, we should probably move on to the next line now." Notice that here in Final Fantasy VII, this vowel extender is followed by a small half-sized version of the letter tsu. Small tsus are used to denote a half-syllable glottal stop in a Japanese word. The pronunciation of them can be tricky for a first-timer. This glottal stop is all over the Japanese dictionary. Sometimes it transforms the syllable after it, as in the case of its presence in the word Nihon, which means Japan, versus Nippon, which also means Japan. Here, the glottal stop adds a tiny little circular mark next to the whole hiragana, turning it into a po. Mastering the sound of these stops is necessary to fluently pronouncing Japanese words. Used at the end of a syllable extension, a small tsu, either in hiragana or katakana, gives off a visual impression of abruptness. It also changes the tone of a voice in reading. Without a small tsu, is just a curious, sigh-like interjection. With a small tsu, transforms into a sudden ejaculation of disbelief. The 2 exclamation marks visually hammer this impression of disbelief into the reader's skull. Did I just spend like 400 words explaining 3 letters of Japanese? Oh no, I have a spreadsheet with the full script over here, and at this rate it'll take me 16 years to finish analyzing this game. That's without bathroom breaks. Tifa and Cloud discuss the weirdness of their hometown's perfect resurrection. The townspeople swear that no calamitous disaster ever occurred here. Clearly, they are Shinra Company narcs. Tifa and Cloud stick it to them with interrogation. Insinuations toward their dishonesty insult the townspeople. Cloud enters his childhood home, only to find a narc woman employed at living there. He tells the woman he lived in this house until he was 14 years old. He tells her that the town burned down. This woman greets Cloud's proclamation of 5 years hence psycho-arson by inquiring, "Are you sick? Saying those things? Get out of here." In Japanese, she says, "Nani o nebokita koto itteru ndai? Kao aratte kara ototoi oide?" Roughly translated, this means, "You are saying such half-asleep things. Wash your face and come back the day before yesterday." Come back the day before yesterday is an old-timey rude expression for don't ever come here again. I learned this expression 2 months after I first moved to Japan in 2001, and we will not talk about how I learned it. Its etymological simplicity appealed to me with instant immediacy. The day before yesterday is a single word in Japanese, ototoi, making this an expression smooth for the expressing. In this elegant tumble of syllables, one approbates any listener toward time-traveling backward up their own beehole as a figurative Ouroboros, destroying space-time and precluding their ever seeing you or anyone else ever again. By telling Cloud to wash his face, this woman is juxtaposing motherly familiarity with her flowery, pointy insult. This extra layer of purposefulness does not exist in the English translation. Maybe this entire video series should just be me repeating that previous sentence over and over again. We can explore the town and find many black-robed figures speaking in multi-dotted sentences regarding an upcoming reunion. They are as cryptic in Japanese as they are in English. The main story path here takes us back to Shinra Manor, where, 5 years ago, Sephiroth locked himself up in a room full of books, read up on his personal history, and decided to kill all humans. The mansion is laid out in a way that was quite impactful the first time we saw it. We will have traversed it twice already at this point in the story. This is as good a time as any to remark on something that, even 21 years later, impresses me about Final Fantasy VII. Its use of repetition. In 2018, backtracking is somehow still a dirty word that stains angry internet comments. Some more principled game likers will refuse to play a game if it is criticized to reuse any location even once. This is because reuse of environments was done extremely poorly in some games in the 1980s and the 1990s. Final Fantasy VII, however, like Final Fantasy VI, reused environments the way Alfred Hitchcock reused an apartment in the film Rear Window. Without so much as a minimap, much less a minimap blip marker, your sheer memory of the climax of an hours-ago cutscene magnetizes you toward this environment's end zone. Of course, if you don't want to submit to this magnetism, some powerful trinkets reward the curiosity of pokers around. The primary puzzle here in Shinra Manor involves a safe inside of which is locked a key. The key unlocks the locked door in the basement. In order to discover the combination to the safe, you need to have an internet connection and a computer in order to access the Imagine Games Network forums. This was a tall order in 1997, so most people followed the in-game clues. These clues all originate from a stack of papers in the office in the lower left portion of the mansion. These papers are the diary of the mad scientist Hojo. He describes a prisoner locked in the basement and offers 3 hints to the combination of the safe that includes the key to the prison. The clues are wickedly cryptic and convoluted. The first hint is the lid of the box with the most oxygen. This clue is translated verbatim from the Japanese, which is "Sanso ga ichiban oi hako no futa." The second hint is behind the ivories, short of tea and ray. This particular sentence fragment means absolutely nothing when we look at it out of context. This boggles a teenage mind in 1997. Piano keys are made of ivory. Tea is a drink with jam and bread. Ray is a drop of golden sun, which is coincidentally a role-playing game for the Nintendo Game Boy Advance, developed by Camelot, makers of Shining Force. However, Golden Sun was not released until 2001, so this clue is perhaps a red herring. If we spell T as T-I and Ray as R-E, we see 2 of the solfege syllables for the notes of the major scale. It's only when looked at from the perspective of a treasure-hunting video game liker accustomed to the experience of bizarre translations in the late 1990s that the answer becomes apparent, and we say, probably aloud, probably in the middle of the night. I guess I'm supposed to search near a piano. The Japanese of this is slightly trickier. Sora no nai kuro to shiro no ura. Here's a literal translation. Behind the black and white with no sky. This makes less than absolutely no sense, until we decode that sky in Japanese is sora, which, if pronounced so-la, demonstrates 2 of the solfege syllables of the major scale in sequence. The only other actually important words in the sentence are thus black, white, and behind, and so we search behind a piano. The final clue is the creak in the floor near the chair on the 2nd floor, then to the left 5 steps, up 9 steps, left 2 steps, and up 6 steps. This is translated with literal fidelity from the Japanese. Nikai no isu no soba no yuka no kishimi, soko kara hidari 5歩, ue 9歩, hidari nippo, ue 6歩. To discover this clue, the player needs to find some chairs on the 2nd floor, find a floorboard that creaks near one of these chairs, and then count Cloud's footsteps painstakingly as he walks. Final Fantasy VII was released in Japan on January 31st, 1997. The original DualShock controller for the PlayStation 1 was released in Japan on November 20th, 1997. So it's worth pointing out that for the first 10 months of this game's life, all players played it with the original PlayStation controller's clearly defined directional buttons. Most players tended to hold down the X button to sprint everywhere, which made this clue difficult to obtain. I distinctly recall being frustrated with the precision this endeavor required. Eventually, I cracked it by navigating Cloud toward the vicinity of the supposed clue and pressing the circle button repeatedly until pay dirt. As I said just a moment ago, Final Fantasy VII was released in Japan on January 31st, 1997. It was released in North America on September 7th, 1997. In the 8 months between its release in Japan and its arrival in the West, numerous native English-speaking individuals bolder than myself made earnest attempts to play and enjoy the game in its original Japanese. 8 months and 21 days might not seem like too long of a time to an adult with a furnished living room of his own, though as a matter of scientific fact, I was in high school when Final Fantasy VII was released in Japan. I was in college when Final Fantasy VII was released in the United States of America. I didn't have any friends until the end of my last year of high school. One of these friends had first made my acquaintance by coincidence while I was on a lunch break at the Target store where I worked. As was my custom, I squandered the balance of that lunch break manhandling the Sega Saturn demo kiosk in the electronics department of the store. This dude walked by me wielding a 20-ounce bottle of A&W root beer and declared, and this actually isn't a joke,
"Dude, you like Sega Saturn?"
Thus, eventually I was invited to a meeting of the North Central High School Japanese Club. First of all, it was not an anime club. There, in March of 1997, dressed in my Late Show with David Letterman t-shirt, a Chicago Cubs hat, and yes, a pair of cargo shorts, I witnessed 6 teenagers whose fashion choices would get them LAID in 2018 manage to avoid anything of the sort for a period of 2 hours in which, with repeated proclamations of how much of a hardcore bad butt Vincent was definitely going to be, dictionarying with the force of wild horse thunder, they struggled to compute the awkward clue about the piano. "Dude," one guy said, "this is classic gaijin protection." My ears blazed. This guy clearly was a reader of Die Hard Game Fan magazine, which used the phrase gaijin protection to describe moments in Japanese role-playing games where, for example, a townsperson asks you to do them a favor in exchange for a key item. This non-player character might say, "I am old and decrepit, and among my possessions is a key to the tomb at the heart of the ruins. I might give it to you, inspiring youngster, if you could place a bouquet of tender wildflowers upon the 6th grave from the left of the grave with the least crumbled tombstone in the city graveyard." On just my 3rd day living in Japan in October of 2001, I purchased a used Super Famicom and loose cartridges of Dragon Quest V and Final Fantasy VI. One game I'd already played, and another I hadn't. I worked slowly through Dragon Quest V over a period of 5 months, during which I became reasonably fluent and spoke in Japanese. 5 months may seem like the blink of an eye to a fully grown adult man with a stomach problem, though to an idiot fresh out of college, it was enough time to move halfway around the world, pick up a musical instrument, make a best friend, get a job working for a manga artist, and learn most of an entire language. I was splicing together 2 tenuous bits of string in one of Dragon Quest V's more obscure side quests when I recalled Die diehard game fan. Gaijin protection is a ridiculous and arrogant name for this phenomenon. It is the vocabulary of a game player who believes that any obstacle to their satisfaction and gratification is the product of its maker's malice toward exactly them. Had not Yuji Horii once said of Dragon Quest that it is his goal to make the player feel the world? That is a beautiful concept. I dare say that's what Final Fantasy VII is going for in this segment right here. It's not quote-unquote forcing you to quote-unquote backtrack into a quote-unquote previous environment. It's taking you back to a piece of the world and letting you feel it in a different way. I mean, it's not doing it as well as a Dragon Quest game would, though. Maybe I shouldn't start talking about Dragon Quest. We piece together the combination, and we approach the safe. Cloud says, "I have a bad feeling about this." Wow, is that a Star Wars reference? Let's take a look at the Japanese. In Japanese, Cloud says, "Yana yokan ga." Note the 6 dots in Japanese, as opposed to the 3 dots in English. Okay, I really have to stop counting the dots. Final Fantasy games are known for their frequent references to Star Wars. The games often feature 2 expendable characters named Biggs and Wedge, named after the X-Wing pilots from Star Wars Episode 4, A New Hope. Final Fantasy IV is swimming with references to Jedi and Sith, or should I say, Paladins and Dark Knights. Final Fantasy VI literally has an evil emperor whose apprentice throws him to his death in a bottomless pit. So I tracked down the official Japanese subtitles for the film A New Hope. Actually, I wrote that previous sentence about an hour ago. I just spent an hour looking for a .srt of those subtitles. I gave up and just downloaded the more readily accessible subtitles for Star Wars Episode VII, The Force Awakens. 45 minutes and 46 seconds into the film, Han Solo says, "I have a bad feeling about this." The official Japanese subtitle for this line is, well, heck, Waru yokan ga suru ze. Warui means bad. Yokan means feeling. In Final Fantasy VII, it's yana yokan. Yana yokan does mean bad feeling. Ya does mean bad, though it means bad in a contextually delicate manner. Disagreeable, uncomfortable, unpleasant. It implies reluctance. In summary, this is unfortunately not a to the letter of the law Star Wars reference. Wow, I didn't expect that Cloud opening Hojo's safe in search of Han Solo could make me feel like Geraldo opening Al Capone's vault. We endure a minigame, fight a difficult optional boss, get the Odin summon materia and the key to the basement room, and then we go downstairs and enter Vincent's chamber. Vincent, like Yuffie, is an optional character. As with many optional aspects of this game, the translator was perhaps not able to easily locate this scene in context within the materials he was provided. Earlier, we addressed the clue involving the piano, which indicates that the translator either phoned Tokyo from his Los Angeles office for an explanation, or was able to play the game to see the puzzle for himself. The offness of Vincent's dialogue is, however, a little bit more vague. Back in 1997, while wearing my Final Fantasy VII pre-order bonus t-shirt that I'd gotten from Electronics Boutique, deep into the night of Saturday, September 13th, I was so enthralled with having solved the puzzle that my only bodily reaction to unearthing the absolute hardcore bad butt Vincent was that of feverish fun trembles. The bizarreness of the translation went right into my eyes and right out the back of my head. Years later, I'd encounter screenshots of this scene on an internet forum and laugh. Today, I'm looking at these words and thinking, wow, no wonder it was so easy for me to learn Japanese. I mean, also, for the record, when I learned Japanese, I already spoke and read Chinese and like 4 other languages, so, I mean, yeah. To wake me from the nightmare.
Who is it?
I'd been seeing sentences like this on TV screens for all of my teens on many JRPGs. This pair of dialogue boxes is perhaps the Rosetta Stone of Japanese sentence structure. Watashi wo akumu kara yobi okosu no wa dare da? Japanese is what linguists refer to as a verb-final language. Specifically, it's a subject-object-verb language. A lot of you might know this already, though English is a subject-verb-object language. Unless you're Yoda from Star Wars. I play basketball is subject-verb-object. Basketball, I play, is object-subject-verb. So, just letting you know, despite his name sounding somewhat Japanese, Yoda from Star Wars' sentence structure is distinctly not Japanese. If it were Japanese, he'd say, I basketball play. I go into so much detail regarding verb finality because this aspect of Japanese linguistic typology defines comic booky dialogue suspense in much of Japanese pop pop culture. The verb concluding a sentence means that the speaker discloses the subject and object up front. This places the burden of shocking conclusion duty entirely on the verb when a writer stylistically draws out a sentence in Japanese. Let's concoct a ridiculous example. それでは俺はお前を殺さない. A machine-like translation would be helpful here. And now you do not kill. This example supposes the viewer's conviction that the speaker is, in fact, going to kill the object of the sentence. The verb subverts that conviction. Vincent's dialogue here is a single sentence broken into two boxes. The second box, however, is not a suspense punchline. Its verb is boring. It's just the plain present tense be verb. Da. It's broken into a second box to emphasize tone. The first box indicates a voice sounding from within a coffin. The second box arrives as an exclamation alongside the explosive burst lifting the coffin lid. 私を悪夢から呼び起こすのは誰だ? A completely literal translation of this line would be, the one which wakes me from this nightmare is who? Needless to say, this is neither natural nor interesting, unless you're a devout linguistic purist, in which case it's both. Let's try to spice up a literal translation. Who wakes me from my nightmare? No matter how you spice it, that second box is going to look weird if we translate this literally. Once again, as with many other optional cutscenes in this game, I'm sure the translator was unable to view the graphics that go with the text boxes. If he had, maybe the line would read differently. Voices puncture my nightmare. What fool dares intrude? Uh-oh, that's somehow a lot worse. I'm looking at these dialogues right now and I'm just, oh god, I'm gonna have to edit this as a video and I'm just making like so much work for myself, though I can't stop typing. I have to do this. When Vincent says, this mansion is the beginning of your nightmare, in Japanese he says, この屋敷は悪夢の始まりの場所だ. As you might have gathered about 6 million times throughout this series, as a general rule, Japanese is more vague than English. Vincent is simply saying, this mansion is a place where multiple nightmares or one nightmare begin or begins. So when Cloud says, like you said, this mansion is the beginning of a nightmare, in Japanese he's saying, あんたが言った通りこの屋敷が悪夢の始まり. He's saying, exactly as you say, this mansion is a place where nightmares or a nightmare begin or begins. Cloud is personally referring to his own nightmare. The day Sephiroth in the bowels of the mansion made a decision to destroy humanity, starting by burning down this village. Except, due to the vagueness of Japanese, we could translate Akumu no Hajimari no Basho as the place where your nightmare begins, the place where your nightmare began, the place where my nightmare began, the place where my nightmare will begin, or simply, the place where nightmares begin, or simply, the place where nightmares will begin, or maybe the place where many nightmares began at some totally unspecified point in the past. So imagine that Vincent says, this mansion is the place where nightmares begin. Cloud replies with, exactly as you say, this mansion is the place where my nightmare began. In English, this is not exactly what Vincent said. In Japanese, it is. Either way, this spurs a conversation in which the two men confuse each other. Vincent continues to say some bizarre lines. This right here is my #1 favorite hot text box in all of Final Fantasy VII. Hearing your stories has added upon me yet another sin. More nightmares shall come to me now, more than I previously had. Now, please leave. I don't even want to dissect this. I just want to leave it here on the screen for a couple seconds, in silence. It is poetry. If you would like to know how to say this in Japanese, repeat after me. 君たちの話を聞いたことで、私の罪はまた一つ増えてしまった。これまで以上の悪魔が私を迎えてくれるだろう。さあ、言ってくれ。Vincent joins our party. In general, his dialogue is badly translated in a way that is neither interesting nor funny, so we will neglect to mention him for the remainder of this series. Sorry, Vincent. Yuffie sure was getting lonely at the kids' table. I can't fit all the letters of Vincent in English in the Japanese version. In the basement, Cloud meets Sephiroth, who is probably a ghost. Sephiroth says, being here brings back memories, which is a neutral thing to say, though in Japanese, he uses the friendlier word, natsukashi na, as as though the memories are happy or pleasant memories. Wow, this guy are sick in the head. Sephiroth asks Cloud, "Are you going to participate in the reunion?" In Japanese, he says, "Tokoro de omae wa reunion ni sanka shinai no ka?" Tokoro de is a casual sentence beginner, so we could translate this as, "So hey, are you coming to the reunion?" Notice that Sephiroth uses the English word reunion in his Japanese sentence. In Japanese, it's pronounced ri-u-ni-o-n. It's one of those English words that lends itself to a buttery smooth pronunciation in Japanese. It almost sounds like it's a native Japanese word, reunion. Now Cloud replies in angry English, "I don't even know what a reunion is." In Japanese, Cloud says, "Ore wa reunion nante shiranai." A machine might translate this as, for example, "I don't even know what a reunion is." Oh my god, that's like actually word for word what the English text box does say. I didn't even notice that until recording this. It's possible that the translator thought Cloud found the word reunion obscure, it being an English loanword not perfectly at home in colloquial Japanese of the day. I personally doubt that Cloud actually does not know what a reunion even is. Prior to Sephiroth speaking this word, we'd heard several black-robed weirdos say it. Cloud and friends have heard the word enough to associate it with some destination that a fleet of individuals are longing after. I also doubt that Cloud's exclamation here is an attempt at inquiring about the nature of the reunion. The use of the English word in Japanese tells us that Sephiroth is referring to a singular reunion, the reunion, with a capital R. "I don't know what the reunion is" would be a better literal translation than what the translator went with. However, my personal anecdotal experience with the Japanese language tells me that Cloud's meaning is a terse, blunt, heated dismissal. Plainly, shiranai does mean I don't know. Putting nante after a noun before a nai verb has the effect of saying I don't even. Noun nante, verb nai, means I don't even verb that noun. Shiranai can be colloquially special. Let's go back to one day in January of 2002. I made a friend shortly after moving to Japan. She became my very best friend in the world. Thanks to her and my shared interest in specific musical artists and works of literature, I went from zero knowledge to relatively competent Japanese in about 3 months. We wrote letters to each other despite seeing each other every other day. We usually exchanged these letters in person. 3 months after we first met, I was working as a personal assistant for a yaoi manga artist. My friend happened to live within walking distance. Me and her started a band with 2 of her other friends. Like most bands that people start, it was a pretty bad band. I won't say that it wasn't my fault that the band was bad. In my experience, one of the best reasons to start a band is so that you have people to talk about music with. This is logically similar to one of the best reasons to start a video game development studio. In 2002, my band buddies and I played angry, noisy trash, though we spent about a dozen or more hours weekly talking about pop music. One day, the 4 of us were discussing the songwriting skills of the 3 individual members of the Yellow Magic Orchestra. The conversation started when our bassist said, for no obvious reason, "You know whose pop songs I always liked? Yukihiro Takahashi." Looking back on it, this was an interesting sentence for an 18-year-old high school girl to speak in the middle of an afternoon, unprovoked, for myriad reasons. "It's all about Haruomi Hosono," my friend said, and she was right. She was our drummer, of course. Her best friend, a guitarist, said, "Ryuichi Sakamoto's solo career is obviously the most interesting," to which my friend replied with shocking, breathless immediacy, "Sakamoto Ryuichi nante shiranne yo." As you may recall from a previous episode in this series, ending a verb in ne is an angrier version of ending that same verb in nai. My friend, being a delinquent who had dropped out of high school to shave her head and pursue a career in, as she put it, becoming exactly Bruce Springsteen, had adopted the speech patterns of a punker. We could machine translate her utterance as, "I don't even know who Ryuichi Sakamoto is." However, I knew for an absolute fact that day that she did in fact know exactly who Ryuichi Sakamoto was. So we could naturalize it in a manner like, "I don't know nothing about no Ryuichi Sakamoto." I'd rather not naturalize the person who taught me the majority of an entire language over the course of a year. Rather, in honor of my friend, I'd propose that we adopt this Japanese phrase pattern in English. For example, the next time you're with a group of friends and someone proposes you eat pizza or tacos, if you want pizza, just say, "I don't even know what a taco is." Sephiroth tells Cloud to head north before supermaning out of town. Cloud, Eris, Tifa, Barrett, Yuffie, Kate Sith, and now Vincent leave Nibelheim and head north. After a short journey, we arrive at, oh my god, it's Rocket Town. Everyone who played Final Fantasy VII in 1997 knew about Rocket Town. They'd seen pictures of it. Everyone was like, Final Fantasy VII is a Final Fantasy game. It has swords, and it also has a Blade Runner city, and it also has a big gun, and it also has a rocket. What players could not predict, however, was when, over the course of this hog-noodly narrative, and in what possible divine context Rocket Town was going to pop up. In 1997, when I came out of that mountain and Rocket Town loomed up on the horizon, I lost my bonkers. Rocket Town is one of the few parts of Final Fantasy VII where the game fails to explain the exactitude of our goal. Therefore, it might be confusing if you were to, say, play this game for the first time in a second language. Our party is headed north, though most players are going to enter Rocket Town before they know that some shallow water stands between the heroes and the rest of the world map. The goal of Rocket Town is, well, to get to the end of the Rocket Town episode, which ends when our heroes obtain an airplane with a broken engine, able to fly only at a low altitude, in the manner of a hovercraft, over the shallow water to the north that the player might not have even seen yet. From the moment you first step into the village, people are telling you about a man they enigmatically refer to as the Captain. In English, Captain can refer to a reasonably wide variety of military ranks. An Army Captain and a Navy Captain have vastly different job descriptions and levels of prestige. In Japanese military terms, captain ranks tend to end with the word chou. This is the kanji for chou. By itself, it means long. Juxtaposed with the kanji for life, for example, we get nagaiki, which means longevity. At the end of a two-kanji job title, chou is thus etymologically similar to senior. Sen means boat, so you might call the captain of a boat a senchou. Ki means machine, and it's the last kanji of the three-kanji word hikoki, meaning airplane. Therefore, kichou would be the captain of an airplane in a
This is your captain speaking.
sort of way. Kanchou is captain of a warship, etc. Let's not be here all day talking about sailors and pilots. In English, the citizens of Rocket Town definitively refer to Sid as the Captain. As a name, the Captain fits with the people's attitude towards Sid and Sid's behavior toward the others. The people of Rocket Town have been stuck in this same place for many years, waiting for Shinra to reopen their space program following an accident that happened the last time they tried to launch the town's titular rocket. The Captain has become the de facto mayor of the place. Let's take apart the name they call him in Japanese. It's Teichou. The kanji Tei is the last kanji of the three-kanji word Hikute, which is what the Final Fantasy series never fails to call its famous airships. Hi means fly, Ku means sky, and Tei means boat. Thus, airships are fly sky boats. Final Fantasy games could use the kanji Sen at the end. Sen is a more robustly versatile word for ships and boats. However, Final Fantasy I chose Hikute in 1987 and has never looked back. Teichou, if we want to really nitpick at it, is a more colloquial, endearing word for captain than Senchou. Therefore, I'm gonna have to go ahead and say that the people of Rocket Town are probably incessantly referring to Sid as Skipper. If we investigate Skipper's house, we see a little airplane out back. It has the words Tiny Bronco printed on it. That's weird. The Skipper's assistant Shara tells us that if we want to ask the Skipper's permission to hijack the Tiny Bronco, he's probably in the rocket dreaming big dreams of manned spaceflight. We go to the rocket to talk to Skipper. This is Sid Highwind. He's older than the other characters in our party, except for maybe Vincent. So he talks like a real gruff Han Solo type. He's mean, and he's negative, and his language is colorful. At this point in his feverish attempt to localize this entire game in 2 weeks, the translator had perhaps just hit his stride. Either that, or the translator of this game must have learned Japanese from reading Yakuza comics or watching Yakuza movies. Translating Sid must have come as effortlessly to our translator as milk in a cow, because Sid's dialogue is wonderfully faithful to the Japanese. Sid regales us with the sad story of how Shinra shut down the space program. Here's a choice line. Money, moolah, dinero. My dream was just a financial number for them. In Japanese, Sid says, Kane, kane, kane da. Ore-sama no yume wa soroban kanjou dake de bou ni furunai. In a manga-esque flair, Sid repeats the word kane, meaning money, in 3 different alphabets. Hiragana, kanji, then katakana. In the next sentence, he uses the pronoun ore-sama to refer to himself. Ore-sama no yume wo, my dreams. He then says that to Shinra, his dreams were soroban kanjou. Soroban means abacus, and kanjou means calculations. Invoking the word abacus in Japanese is to paint a portrait of a greedy miser of ancient historical times. Bo ni furu is an idiomatic expression that literally means shake a stick at. Let's imagine a bad machine translation. My dreams as an abacus calculation, they shook a stick at it. I could devote 3 full hour-long episodes to Sid's usage of idiomatic expressions, or I could analyze some dialogue from Yakuza 0 in a later video. I'll restrain myself for now. Sid tells us that his assistant Shara messed up the launch. Here's a good dialogue box to scrutinize. Because of that dumb butt Shara, the launch got messed up. That's why they became so anal. In Japanese, he says, Tokoro de noroma no Shara no sei de, uchiage wa ojan, sore ga kechi no tsuki hajime yo. Let's pry this apart. That dumb butt Shara is noroma no Shiera in Japanese. Fun fact, her name is actually Shiera, not Shara. If her name were Shara, the e katakana would be half size. I think her name is supposed to be Sierra, like the geographic feature. Skipper is going to refer to Sierra as a noroma in various borderline creative ways. The English script will often fake censor this word many times in the interest of our imaginations. Sid exclusively says noroma in katakana, which is more common for this word than kanji. If we do look into the kanji, it's this. Noroma, the kanji noro, as seen in the adjective noroi or nibui, meaning dull, as in the opposite of sharp, meaning the kanji ma, also aida or kan, meaning room, enclosed space or period of time. The easiest way to translate this word is blockhead. He's calling her a blockhead. No seide is a handy phrase to suffix to a word to mean by the fault of. Ano noroma no seide means by the fault of that blockhead. Uchiage wa ojan. Uchiage means launch. Ojan is a quippy way of saying something got, well, messed the heck up in something resembling a fell swoopy swift manner. The final sentence is sore ga kechi no tsuki hajime yo. Sore ga, that is. Kechi no, kechi meaning stinginess. Tsuki hajime being the stem form of tsuku, to attach, and the stem form of hajimeru, to begin. Let's do another imaginary bad machine translation. That is stinginess's attachment beginning. Spoken by a quippy, gruff man like Sid, this sentence is clearly befitting a diagnosis of the Shinra Company's anal retentiveness. This next box shows an excellent usage of the Japanese particle ka. Ka at the end of a sentence turns that sentence into a question. This is a neat advantage of the Japanese language. You can get a handle on this concept by messing around with it in English. This is your car, ka. You like me, ka. You are hungry, ka. You like pizza, ka. In English, Sid says, at this rate, I don't know which will come first. This thing falling down or me getting out of here. In Japanese, that's kono bun dato koitsu ga taoreru no ga saki ka, ore-sama ga ochinu no ga saki ka tte kurai da. Koitsu ga taoreru no ga saki ka means this thing falls over is first ka. Ore-sama ga ochinu no ga saki ka means I drop dead is first ka. Chained together, two relative clauses, each concluded by a ka, constitute an invitation to consider one of those things as happening as somehow denecessitating the other. Also, Sid definitely says ochinu, which is the kanji for push and the kanji for die. Colloquially, that's sort of like saying, or I drop dead. There's an NPC in the town who presents us one of my absolute favorite video game text boxes of all time. I wish you'd take care of it and use it. In Japanese, this is daiji ni tsukatte moraeru to washi mo ureshii n ja ga. That's, well, the translation is pitch perfect. This is exactly what this particular old man standing alone staring at a rocket all day would say. Leave him alone. We go back to Sid's house. Sid learns that the president of the Shinra Company is coming to town. He hopes it's to reopen the space program. He yells at Sierra. He asks her to make some tea. We got guests. Get some tea. Up caret percentage mark $, hashtag, exclamation point. In Japanese, that's Kyaku ga kitara chiakurai dasei ya, kono usunoro. If guests come, at least give them some tea, you usunoro. If I were the translator, rather than sprinkle the spice of fake censorship, I'd have taken this opportunity for Sid to straight up call her a blockhead. Get some tea for our guests, you blockhead. Usunoro is presented in katakana, though if it were kanji, usu would be the kanji for the verb usui, meaning of thin consistency. One of the worst qualities to attribute to a soup broth, for example, is usui. He's implying that her dull, blocky head is full of a thin, transparent substance, possibly a liquid. When we try to say we don't want tea, Skipper lashes out at us, too. Shut up. Sit your butt down in that chair and drink your goddarn tea. This text box comes up a lot in emails from viewers. You all really want to know how to say this in Japanese. Now, I'm not going to judge you, though if you end up using this in casual conversation, you are a weirdo. Urusei, uda yuna. Kyaku wa isu ni suwatte otonashiku shitero. When Skipper is gone, Cloud and friends ask Sierra why he's such a mean guy. Sierra confesses that it was her fault that the rocket launch failed. In a flashback, one of the launch crew informs Sid that a mechanic is still in the engine section. Sid asks the crew member, what? Who is the little up caret percentage mark $, at mark, exclamation point, question mark? In Japanese, he asks, Nandatte, doko no baka yaro da? What did you say? What idiot would that be? He uses the word dokono, which technically means from where. His entire sentence sentence would be, an idiot from where? The crew patches Sid's voice into the engine section. He asks over the intercom, hey goddarn it, who the ampersand percentage mark $ hashtag still in there? In Japanese, however, I just gotta point out that he says, Oi, kora! そんなところにいるのはどこのバカ野郎だ?
Oi, kora!
Is Japanese tough guy slang. It means, oi, kora. Skipper then asks, let's do a machine-style translation again. Still in such a place is an idiot from where? He uses the exact same expression that he had used a moment earlier with the crew. An idiot from where? In English, he phrases it differently. In Japanese, we get this little glimpse of Sid being the exact same self with all of his employees. This is just a tiny difference, I say, several hours into a video series about tiny differences. Shinra punks skate onto the scene. Palmer pops into Sid's house and immediately unleashes a boisterous greeting. Hey, hey, long time no see. So, Sid, how you been? His hey, hey in Japanese is uhyo. This is a particularly childish, weird way for a grown man to begin a sentence. Sid then says, well, if it ain't Fat Man Palmer, how long were you figuring on keeping me waiting? This is a great example of text expansion. The English translation is much longer than the Japanese original. We can take this as almost concrete proof that the translator was having a good time translating either this segment or this particular character. So in Japanese he says, Yo, Futocho Palmer, matteta ze, which is simply, hey, Futocho Palmer, I was waiting for you. Then, with absolutely zero relent, Sid continues to swing the body shame hammer. Up caret $ hashtag
Ampersand
exclamation point, good for nothing.
fat
Ampersand $
hashtag
$ up caret at mark
exclamation point.
In Japanese, that's aikawarazu no yakatatazu futocho me. The first collection of censorship punctuation suffices for the English translation of ke, which we've seen Barrett use before. It's an interjection of impatience. These next two lines pack a lot of Japanese tough guy slangism into one sentence. Aikawarazu no yakatatazu futocho me. Aikawarazu simply means unchanging. It's like beginning a sentence with, as always. Yaku roughly means roll. Tatsu means stand. Yaku ni tatsu means to stand to one's role, or to be useful. Yaku tatanai means to not be useful. Zu is a way of marking a verb as negative. It's as though you take the nai on a negative verb and swap it out completely for a zu. Yaku ni tatanai becomes yaku ni tatazu. Now, both a nai verb and a zu verb can chain into another part of a sentence. If you asked me right now what was great about the Japanese language, I would say it's the way it handles relative clauses. I'm gonna fudge the rules here a little bit, so any linguists in the audience, please don't yell at me. Ending a Japanese verb with a plain form ending allows that verb to function as sort of an adjective. Ore-sama no ocha nomanai kyaku-san, my guests who won't drink tea. We can put a subject particle, wa, at the end of this whole thing to make it the beginning of a sentence. Ore-sama no ocha nomanai kyaku-san wa Sephiroth wo sagashiteiru. My friends who don't drink tea are looking for Sephiroth. Sid isn't trying to put together a smart sentence here. He's just using yakutatazu to seamlessly modify futochome. Here, the smooth zu ending hints at some correlative subtext, as though either the yakutatazuing or the futochomeing is responsible for the other. He's calling Palmer a useless futochome. Futocho is a simple, inelegant word for overweight person. A guy in my office at Sony Computer Entertainment in Japan used to brazenly call another guy futocho, never failing to result in an eye roll from the accused party. What I mean is they never came to fisticuffs about it. However, by putting a me on the end of futocho, Sid has officially obscenified it. Similarly, if you watch a Yakuza film, you might hear someone call someone a yarome. Now, you can obscenify a lot of stuff by putting me on the end of it, though you definitely can't obscenify everything. So what I'm saying is, in polite company, maybe you just shouldn't try using this technique at all. Many of you wanted an explanation for this text box, in which Palmer treats Sierra like a Starbucks drive-thru. Hey, tea, can I have some too? With lots of sugar and honey and, oh yeah, don't forget the lard. He repeats his order later in a slightly different text box. Hey, is the tea ready yet? With plenty of sugar and honey, oh yeah, and don't forget the lard too. Let's look at both of these in Japanese. Uhyo ocha da, washi ni mo chodai, satou to hachimitsu tappuri de, rado mo irete ne, washi ni mo chodai. His first person pronoun is washi, which is a bit flamboyantly old manly. Chodai is a single word meaning give me. It ends a sentence, though it is not technically a verb. It's an arrogant way to ask for something. Also, it's how a small child might ask his mom for something. Oka-san, kare chodai.
Mom, make me curry.
Chodai thus contrasts uncomfortably with Palmer's weirdo first-person old man pronoun. Sato to hachimitsu tappuri de means with plenty of sugar and honey, and tappuri is a good word. You see it in a lot of food commercials. It means plenty or plentiful. Rado mo irete ne simply means and put some lard in too. His repeat of the order is as expected. Uhyo, ocha wa mada kana? Uhyo, is the tea done yet? Sato to hachimitsu tappuri de, again with tappuri. Rado mo dossari irete ne. He wants the lard to be dossari. Dossari is similar semantically to tappuri, though when applied to the idea of putting lard into tea, it is somehow hysterically funnier. Like tappuri, dossari is a word that implies something appears with the ghost of a sound. If tappuri implies a phantom sound of pixie dust sprinkling, dossari implies the sound of something falling with a thud upon its destination. Sprinkle in a bunch of sugar and tinkle in a bunch of honey and plop in a big old dump of lard too, please. I got some people asking me if lard in tea is actually a thing in Japan, and no, it's not. This is meant to be as ridiculous in Japanese as it is in English. However, I will point out that as a person who doesn't eat meat, I was surprised when I learned how to read enough Japanese to find out that there's lard in every potato chip or Dorito in Japan. So if you're a strict vegetarian, look out for that if you ever travel to Japan. Shinra tells Sid that they want his airplane. Sid doesn't even know what an airplane is. Sierra takes us out back and implores us to take the darn tiny Bronco and fly away. We fight Palmer in front of the airplane. We jump on and fly out of town while under heavy gunfire. Sid, too, jumps on the plane. He's had it with that town. Sid employs good old-fashioned American-style profanity upon the occasion of the planes being damaged. Stuff! The tail's been hit! In Japanese, he says, whoa. He actually literally says the English S word. She? E. As I explained in a previous episode, when I was 5 years old, I promised my mom I would never say any of the words they can't say on Nickelodeon, so I must pause in the middle of this word. Ito! Byoku ga yarareteru janee ka. Byoku means tail, as in tail of an airplane. Ga yarareteru janee ka is an excellent intro to Japanese passive voice verbs. Yaru is a generic verb meaning to do. Yarareru is a generic way to say to be done. Yarareta is past tense. It was done. Yarareteru is it's a colloquial contraction of yarareteiru, though let's just say yarareteru is present continuous passive. It is being done. Present continuous passive verb phrases are common in Japanese. A machine might translate yarareteru as it is being done, though what's important to note here is that this structure often implies that something was done and now remains in the state of having been done. In manly parlance, yarareteru means we've been hit. Think of it this way. The plane was hit, and now it remains in the state of having been hit. The speaker is thus foreseeing that for the indefinite time being, he will have to deal with the results of the plane having been hit. Thus, the present continuous. Sid affixes janeka to the end of the sentence because he's a tough guy. Ending a sentence with janaika can imply either indecision or obviousness. It literally means, isn't it? This isn't it can be in seeking of affirmation, or it can be pointing to something blatant in a how about that manner. Janeka sounds slangy and tough. Ending a sentence with janeka in light of a recent atrocity is like saying, well, will you heckin' look at that? The tail's been hit. Cloud asks about Sierra. What about your wife, Shara? Okusan wa Sierra wa ii no ka? To which Sid replies, wife? Don't make me laugh. Just thinking about marrying her gives me the chills. In Japanese, that's Okusan, warawaseru nai. Sierra ga nyoubu nante torihada ga tatsu ze. The important phrase here is torihada, which literally means chicken skin. We usually translate this Japanese word into English as goosebumps. However, the translator smartly translated it as the chills. Just thinking about marrying her gives me goosebumps. Doesn't sound right. It would sound like he's excited to marry her. The matter of fact here is, in Japanese, goosebumps kinda means something different sometimes. Sid decides to join us with one of my favorite dialogue exchanges in the game. Glad to be aboard, numbskulls. To which Cloud replies,
Numbskulls?
Man, notice how he misspells numbskulls there. I love it. Sid, yeah, anyone stupid enough to go against Shinra nowadays has gotta be a numbskull.
I like it.
First of all, translator guy, come on. Didn't they know how to use commas on that Yakuza dairy farm you grew up on? I was quite interested to see what word Sid used for numbskull in Japanese, and I was not disappointed. Yoroshiku na, kusottare-san tachi yo. Yoroshiku is a good simple way to say, nice to meet you. The translator deftly translated here as glad to be aboard. He then calls Cloud and friends kusottare-san tachi. Sid has not, up until this point, been one for formality. As you may know, san is a polite way of saying Mr. Tachi is a pluralizer. If we translate kusottare for the time being as numbskull, he's calling us Mrs. and Mrs. Numbskull. The question is, how do we translate kusottare? It's a word that many punk rockers, delinquents, gangsters, losers, psychos, and posers have applied to themselves and even others over many years of Japanese culture. It's often translated as craphead, or the male version of the B word. It adapts to a rainbow of contexts. If we break it down etymologically, it's the kanji for turd, kuso, a glottal stop, and the kanji for droplet, hanging, or drizzle, tare. Tare is often used in food to describe the manner in which a sauce or topping is applied to a dish before serving. In butcher's terms, the tare is the wattle, the loose skin of a bird's neck. Kusottare thus most literally means turd wattle. Translating this as numbskull is a fine idea, though that's also the word that the translator probably should have used to translate the insults Sid heaped upon Sierra. Oh well, now we can do a bunch of side quests. If we stop in at a little house on an island somewhere, a guy tells us that he had the keystone to the Temple of the Ancients, though he sold it to Dio at the Gold Saucer. So we go to the Gold Saucer. We talk to Big Boy Daddy Man Dio, who gives us the keystone if we fight in his battle arena. We don't even have to win. It turns out the Gold Saucer ropeway is broken, so we have to stay in the Ghost Hotel for the night. Kate Sith uses this moment to ask us to recap the story up until this point. Cloud explains everything. There's one little moment in here I like. Eris is explaining the Cetra tribe's role in the history of the planet. In Japanese, Eris says, Setora no tami wa yakusoku no chi e kaeru, shijou no koufuku ga yakusoku sareta unmei no tochi. Setora no tami means Cetra tribe. Interestingly, etc. in Japanese is pronounced etosetora, so Setora could be a bit of a tongue-in-cheek name for this vanished mystic tribe. Barrett inquires about the Cetra. Setora no tami, nanda sore? He simply says, Setora no tami. What's that? In English, Eris says, the Cetras will return to the Promised Land, a land that promises boundless happiness. And Barrett replies, Cetra? That's some kind of disease? It's nice to know that even this late into the project, the translator was still able to have some fun. Heck, he still has about half a game left to translate. Speaking of which, let's move this series toward its climax. After the story is fully told and the player's mom and little brother are adequately abreast of the plot up to this point, Cloud retires to bed. In the middle of the night, a knock comes at the door. It's Eris. Okay, so it's also Tifa, it's also Barrett, and it's also Yuffie, though it's only one of them per playthrough of the game. Which one of the other characters knocks on Cloud's door is dependent upon you, the player's choices in multiple dialogues up to this point in the game. In the interest of science, I endeavored to capture all 4 dates. My first playthrough of the game, I answered all the questions with my true love in my heart, and thus it was Eris who knocked on Cloud's door. My second time through the game, I took upon myself the pain of rejecting Eris for Tifa at every possible opportunity, and it was Eris at Cloud's door once again. Somehow, perhaps subliminally, I had manipulated Cloud and Eris into an unbreakable bond. I'm sorry, I didn't have time to play through this game 4 more times. This series is consuming enough of my life as it is. I've been making these videos for a year. I've played every scene in this game so many times that I bet a brain surgeon would find a tattoo of Sephiroth on my cerebellum. Our friends at thelifestream.net, however, were on the case. They submitted me footage of both Eris and Tifa's dates with Cloud. Thanks, thelifestream.net. I got on the internet and downloaded a spreadsheet of the game's entire script. I did a couple quick side-by-side comparisons of English to Japanese. And with that, let's bring this thing to the climax. The date consists of 2 scenes. First, the couple goes to perform in a stage show. Then they ride a cable car gondola during a fireworks display while having a romantic dialogue. The stage show scene kinda sucks. There's a part where they call the princess Rosa in English and Ruza in Japanese. Rosa is the name of one of the main characters of Final Fantasy IV, so this is clearly a reference to that in both languages. However, in English, the translator brazenly invokes the name. The Japanese writers only make a coy insinuation at it. You can make a bunch of dialogue choices here, though we'd all lose most of our brain cells if I tried to dissect this. When we're done with the stage show, Eris or Tifa suggest riding the gondola. The semantics of their suggestions represent a perfect microcosm for the nature of their relationships with Cloud. Tifa says, that was funny. Hey, let's go on the gondola next. Eris says, oh, Oh, that was fun. Hey, let's go on the gondola. In Japanese, Tifa says, Fufu, okashikatta ne. Ne, tsugi wa gondola ni norimashou. Eris, meanwhile, says, omoshirokatta. Ne, tsugi wa gondola noro. Tifa says, Fufu, a casual, if ponderous, girly laugh. Okashikatta ne means that was funny, wasn't it? Except okashi is not the adjective you'd use to mean funny most of the time. It most often means strange or curious. It also means funny in the sense that expired milk might smell funny. Next, she says ne, which is a drawn-out ne. A short ne would be hey. A drawn-out ne is a gentle, unsure insinuation. Hey, or Tsugi wa gondola ni norimashou? Next, let's ride the gondola. Her norimashou is a somewhat formal suggestion of let us ride, though for full formality she would have extended the mashou to mashou. She's being stilted, though not all the way. It's clear that she is not fully relaxed on this date. Eris says of the stage show, Omoshirokatta. Tifa had appended a ne at the end of her declaration, which at the end of a sentence indicates the speaker inviting the other party to agree. Eris does not ask for agreement. Her is a boisterous exclamation of joy. Omoshirokatta means was interesting, though as part of such a vehement exclamation, one could translate it as that was great, or even that was hilarious. Eris's suggestion to ride the gondola begins with a short, informal ne. This is like starting a sentence with hey, tsugi wa gondola noro? Noro is the plainest, most conversational form of norimashou. In full formal grammar, let's ride the gondola is gondola ni norimashou. Tifa only barely colloquializes this with gondola norimashou. Eris does not adhere to formality at all. Eris and Tifa both omit the ni particle, which indicates that the gondola is the thing which is to be ridden. Eris and Tifa both understand that Japanese particles are the clinking shackles of ancient ghosts. Among friends, context allows one to omit most particles when speaking Japanese. So I'd translate Tifa's line as, shall we ride the gondola now? And Eris's line as, okay, now we're gonna ride the gondola. This is really all that you need to know. That and that in the spreadsheet I have of all of Final Fantasy VII's text dumped directly from the game files, Eris's lines sit above Tifa's in every line of the date scenes. Also that, according to finalfantasy.wikia.com, Eris starts with 50 affection points and Tifa only starts with 30. I mean, look, people, it's math. Eris is the real date. Seriously, you don't need me to go through the rest of this. You really, you don't need me to. Well, here's some more of it anyway. When boarding the gondola, English Tifa and English Eris both say, two, please. Punctuation and everything identical. However, in Japanese, Tifa says, futari onegaishimasu, and Eris says, futari onegaishimasu. Eris uses that tilde to drag out the masu. This might appear to the uninitiated observer boisterous in text. However, if I may speak anecdotally, I have been privy to many a public display of this typographical affectation's real-world vocal counterpart. For many years, I was engaged to marry a woman who could drag out an onegaishimasu for a half an hour if she had a good reason to, and never in a voice louder than a ghost's whisper. It was majestic. Onegaishimasu. In conclusion, Eris is more playful and friendly to the attendant without dropping formality. English Yuffie simply says, two. Japanese Yuffie matter-of-factly says, futari de noru yo, two of us will ride. English Barrett says, hey, you gotta be kidding. Just us two? Okay, that's cool, I guess. Japanese Barrett says, oi, otoko futari de noru no kayo? Ii kedo na. Which we could translate as, hey, two men riding this thing together? What the heck. Hold up, are you joking my eyes out? The English version of this line is less homophobic than the Japanese version. Dinner bell sound effect. The gondola ride proceeds. Our passengers in romance utter the usual pleased exclamations upon witnessing pretty scenery. Further into the ride, the conversation gets real. Each date partner has a different heartfelt dialogue with Cloud. Here is Tifa's. Okay, I'm going to just go ahead and say it. What? Eris would be able to just come out and say it, probably. Huh? Sometimes being old friends is hard. I mean, timing is everything. Yeah. Cloud, In Japanese, this is slightly more delicate. Ichao kana, as though to herself, here Tifa is saying, should I say it? Nani wo? Cloud's dangling o particle here implies the object of the preceding sentence. Should you say what? Earisu nara kito hakkiri iun darou na. Clearly, Aerith would be able to say it plainly. Osana najimi tte muzukashii yo ne. Timingu muzukashii no yo. A machine-like translation. Old friends, difficult, yes. Timing, difficult, yes. Yone is a soft tag question. A soft, right? She's not begging for a response. She's presuming the response is yes. Huh? Here English Cloud says, yeah. Though in Japanese, it's the same word as his previous, huh? Huh? We could translate this as, This suffices for what I consider an interesting difference. Cloud is almost definitively not saying, yeah. He is not agreeing about old friends being difficult, or about timing being difficult. He's simply making a hesitation sound to fill a space in a conversation. He is confused. Maybe he is bored. He might not know what Tifa wants to say. Tifa's use of the word muzukashi is the key here. Muzukashi's dictionary definition is difficult, though that's boring. It can mean complex, tricky, weird, awkward, uncomfortable, bewildering, befuddling. It can mean any of these things in either or both of its repetitions here. A punch-up attempt might look like this. You know what? Being old friends kinda sucks. It's impossible to find the right timing. And Cloud says, and then Tifa says, ano ne, Cloud. So, hey, Cloud, watashi ne, and then, faced with the man she loves being possibly too inattentive to even understand what quote-unquote timing could possibly be a challenge to her, the timing slips away forever. 15 dots, then 21 dots. I counted them. Now, Eris's ride in the gondola. It's beautiful, isn't it? First off, it bothered me how you looked exactly alike. Two completely different people, but look exactly the same. The way you walk, gesture. I think I must have seen him again, in you. However, you're different. Things are different. I'm searching for you. I want to meet you. I'm right here. I know. What I mean is, I want to meet you. 21 years of hindsight tells us, Final Fantasy VII fans, that Eris is talking about her former boyfriend person, Zax. We have yet to see the full story of Zax and Cloud's relationship, and maybe the translator hadn't seen it yet either, because this translation is a little fumbly. Let's look at the Japanese. Kirei da ne, how pretty. Hajime wa ne, sokkuri datta kara kini natta. She uses the word sokkuri, a word used to equate the superficial qualities of two things. If you say someone and their brother are sokkuri, you're saying they look like each other. What makes sokkuri unique is that, as often happens in Japanese, you can use this word without clarifying the identity of the comparison. She isn't saying you were similar to him, she's just saying you were similar. Of course, you and I know she's comparing Cloud to a him, though we have to, for a second, appreciate that him is not part of the sentence, and therefore not part of the ensuing dialogue. This is one of the aspects that makes Japanese so hard to translate. Also in this sentence, Eris uses the expression kini naru, which is among the vaguer and more versatile expressions in the Japanese language. Literally, it means became feeling. At first, you were sokkuri, so it became feeling. She could be saying it was on my mind, it worried me, it made me curious. The English translation of it bothered me is good. Zenzen betsujin nandakedo sokkuri. You were definitely a different person, though you were sokkuri. Arukikata, te no ugokashikata. The way you walk, the way you move your hands. Anata no naka ni kare wo miteita. I saw him within you. Eris has officially introduced the pronoun him. Demo, chigau no, a machine-like translation is useful here. Yet, different. Ima wa chigau, now is different. Ne, Cloud. Hey, Cloud. Here, let's pause for just a moment and appreciate how few lines in Final Fantasy VII's Japanese script end in punctuation marks. We'll return to this point much later. Watashi, anata wo sagashiteiru. I am searching for you. Cloud is confused. Anata ni aitai. Literally, I want to meet you. Ore wa koku ni iru. I am right here. Wakatteru. Demo, yeah, I know. Just, anata ni
aitai.
Anata ni aitai is among the more common expressions in the Japanese colloquial feminine vernacular, as presented in pop music. When I first moved to Japan, I taught English for 2 months at a conversation school owned by a large company. I was 22 years old and slightly more physically attractive than I am right now. I wore a suit even on my days off. 4 days into my employment, one English teacher invited me to a party at another English teacher's house. The other English teacher's house was full of other English teachers. They were becoming drunken English teachers. One of them, who had been teaching English in the country for 6 years, aired their frustrations in front of me. Another thing I can't stand, this English teacher said, is the pop music in this country. You only need to know like 6 words to understand all the pop music. It's garbage. I was like, I've been listening to Japanese pop music for a couple of years and I kinda like a lot of it. The English teacher dismissed my statement as though my knowledge were obviously inferior. All you need to know how to say is anata ni aitai. It just means I want to meet you. It's It's so childish. This jerkweed clearly had no appreciation for subtlety. As an expression born in a language which thrives in one of the most densely populated cities in the world, in a city where thanks to plentiful landmarks like distinctive statues of dogs, or clocks, or storefronts, or billboards, couples can arrange weeks in advance to meet without any communication on the days in between. In a city of tens of millions where everywhere you look you're looking someone else in the eye on accident, to plainly declare your desire to meet someone on purpose is courageous and wonderful. And as far as astronauts and asteroids and meteorites and planetoids are concerned, it is closer than as close as we can get to love without being love. In English, Eris says, I want to meet ... you. In Japanese, she is toying with the convention of anata ni aitai by suspensefully separating the verb from the object. I want to ... meet you. In either translation, she is implying that they have not yet quote-unquote truly met. In Japanese, she is implying that she absolutely intends upon meeting Cloud's true self at some point in the future. Of all the faces and bodies and voices and personalities swirling around in this river of life called the world, it's his she wants to truly stand before and gaze into one-on-one.
I love her.
When we make to return to our hotel rooms in which nobody is having sex with anybody else, except the two components of Kate Sith, I mean, look at these two guys. They were born and or manufactured ready to... Oh, it turns out Kate Sith is a narc. As a helicopter makes whirly-birdsy noises overhead, Kate Sith blackmails us for patsies. We have to play along, or Barrett's tiny daughter, who we might have forgotten about, is going to become a corporate murder victim. Just like the rest of us, am I right? In our next and final episode, we'll go to the Temple of the Ancients. We'll obtain the Black Materia, and we'll descend unto a forgotten city of a departed ancient mystic race, wherein Sephiroth will kill Eris with his 8-foot-long samurai sword, and our series will conclude. Oh yes, our next episode will be our final episode. I've got something special in store just for you. Or do I? Find out next time